According to my father, my first musical experience when I was 3, which would have been 1966, my parents said, "What do you want for your birthday?" And all I could say is I wanted a yeah, yeah. And this went on for weeks and weeks. What a yeah, yeah. I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, until, according to the family legend, "She Loves You, Yeah, Yeah" came on the radio, and I went, "She loves you, yeah, yeah." I thought a guitar was called a yeah, yeah. So I asked my parents for a yeah, yeah, age 3, but I don't know as to the truthfulness of that. The first piece of music that I remember made me feel strange and gave me a sense of a kind of otherworldly parallel universe was "The Mighty Seasons in the Sun" by Terry Jacks, which obviously in later years I came to find out was Jacques Brel's Le Moribund. It's a death ballad, you know what I mean? So the first piece of music that made me feel weird was a death ballad with twangy guitars on it. I think until we you know what I mean? You know, looking back on my musical output, need we say more really? Just to me, they were otherworldly. They were telling stories that come from another place. It was a bit like the world I was in. You know, I didn't go Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't want complete fantasy. I just wanted, you know, even at that age, I wanted to kind of maybe look at what was behind the curtain a little bit. I don't, obviously not consciously at the time, but looking, you know, in hindsight, that was maybe what I was doing, and maybe that's because I didn't have a bad childhood, but maybe that's being a suburban kid. That's what I wanted, and that's where my imagination led me. I didn't want to go too fantastical, because I obviously was getting. I found the world quite fantastical as it was. You know, I could dress up as Spider-Man if I wanted to and stuff. So I didn't want to. You know, it was already quite fantastical, but I just still wanted to see if there was another little avenue of escape. Because I lived in the suburbs, although it was only 15 miles from London, back then it might have sort of been 1,500 miles. So I'd kind of resigned myself to the fact that I may be a sort of big fish in a small pond, and that was all right. I'd work, you know, there's plenty of work around. I'd work for a few months, have a couple of months off, spend the money on trousers, records, clothes, books, get another job. So I just thought I was quite happy. You know, still don't have. I'm very uncompetitive, and I'm completely lacking in ambition. Other than to have those things, other than I suppose I am just to be happy with what I've got, and I just thought that would always be the way. So if I can't make music or get involved in it, I'll just work at something else and buy it instead. That's fine. It can be the soundtrack to my life rather than be my life. By doing that and amassing a big record collection, I started to people used to started to ask me to DJ. A few years before, this was a few years, 2 or 3 years before Acid House. I think one of my earliest gigs was at a reservoir in Colnbrook. It's okay. Welcome to show business, and it was in this club. I can't remember what it was called, but basically they had a club in this, you know, in this reservoir sort of development, and this is before smoke machines have become ubiquitous in the acid house world. It's like, oh, they've got a smoke machine, so I whacked the smoke machine on full knacker and played the theme from the 633 Squadron, and there were people doing that kind of goggle thing, like going through the crowd, and through the smoke, proper Phoenix Nights style, came this big fat sweaty manager who just looked at me and went "fuck off" and put the in-house DJ in. That's my earliest DJing memory. But weirdly enough, I was reading recently about a 2000 BC Greek ceremony which involved a square room, coloured lights, smoke, and music to, you know, as a sort of Gnostic rite to reach the divine. So, but then transcendence has always been about theatre, isn't it? You know, smoke, coloured lights, music. It's a staple of a lot of religions, isn't it? You know, that's why I'm always kind of conflicted. I love what I do, And sometimes I think, oh, it's just a fucking disco. That when people start taking it seriously and arguing online about things, and the politics of clubland are horrible. I just start. I will always just weigh in and go, it's just a fucking disco. But on the other hand, it is, to me, it is a line back to that 4,000 year old rites at Silbury Hill and in ancient Greece. You know, so it does have it does have an importance. That's why I have a weird relationship with what I do, because I can see the depth to it, but it's also, there are many shallows. Basically, it was Paul Oakenfold, Danny Rampling, Johnny Walker. We're going to Ibiza, going to Amnesia, hearing this music, which was a mixture of proto techno, indie, rock music, you know, like the aforementioned Core Leisure by the Residents, soul music, putting it all together, and in beautiful, you know, in Foam Party's Amnesia with the Setting Sun, they brought it back, and Oakenfold brought it to Ziggy's in Streatham High Road. I don't know if you're aware of Ziggy's in Streatham High Road, and on the door, the doorman was Nosha Powell. Are you aware of the work of Nosha Powell? And I just find that kind of vision beautiful, you know, to bring something like that, and then try and recreate it. And it was like on a Wednesday night or something. It was like on an off night. They weren't allowed to have the weekend, because that was, you know, that was get the punters in. You know, you can play your weird music on a Wednesday, and that's how it started. You know, the same with rhythm and blues. You know, we brought it back and did our kind of to start with wonky version, and same with rock and roll, and kind of put our sort of eccentric English whimsy upon it. You know, and that's what I love. That's the kind of untold story. You know, now that house music is the global pop, you know, the generic pop sound. In my mind, it'll always be Nosha Powell on a wet Wednesday. I was 13 in '76, so punk rock was kind of my thing, but I was still a bit young. I still felt like a bit of like the sort of, you know, the snotty kid that gets sent on errands by the gang, you know what I mean? But when Acid House was happening, it was just, there became, when it started getting media interested, and the Sun were phoning us up in our office, I began to get a bit protective, because it's like, no, this is my train. You know what I mean? Punk was kind of my train, but I was still hanging off the back a little bit. But this is my train, and I'm you know what I mean? I'm at the head of the train, so I'm going to set the rules. So I was guilty of that, of a little bit of a little, well, not a little bit, quite a huge amount of snobbery via the pages of Boy's Own. But it's just protective. People are still like it now. You know, the rockabilly scene, reggae scene, rare groove, northern soul. They're very protective of their thing. I think even more so now, because if you want to be a northern soul DJ, you can just go Northern Soul Classics, add to cart, you know what I mean, turn up with your CD. That's why they want to see you play a 7-inch single, to know that you're not a Johnny Come Lately. So I think scenes, on the one hand, yeah, that snobbery is not great, but I don't know, it's just sometimes it's the default setting for when you're feeling a bit protective or very protective about what you think is your thing, and you don't want it watered down or the wrong people to have it, you know. At the start, people just thought we were idiots, you know what I mean? Trying to sell the fans, you know, pre sort of Acid House, and very few people came to our parties. But it didn't take long for us to become the kind of mouthpiece. I mean, John Brown Publishing offered us a nationwide distribution deal, but we just thought, well, there's only probably about 1,000, 2,000 people in London that will get the jokes, let alone when it transfers. It turns out it probably was. We could have done it, but I just think we were a bit scared. You know, we were a bit scared and a bit lazy, and we were having too much of a good time. We just thought that, no, this is, beware professionals at work. You know, we might have to deadline. You know, I couldn't phone up when the deadline for my article was a Wednesday and go like, oh fuck, sorry, I've been at it since last Thursday. Can we make it next week? You know, to an executive at John Brown. So I think we decided that it was a little bit beyond. It was taking it somewhere that we never envisaged it. I made the first attempt at Loaded, and it was a bit pedestrian. And Andrew Innes, the Screams guitarist, listened to it. He went, "No man, fucking destroy it." So that was my second or third remix, and I've got a member of a band going, "Fucking destroy it." So I kind of had that, you know what I mean, vaguely threatening Glaswegian phrase ringing through my ears, and still do to this day a lot of the time, you know. But I think I did destroy it, but I think I kept the essence of what, you know, of the track. I think. I mean, that record is so naive; it's unbelievable. I would never be able to make that record again because I know too much. You know, it's riddled with what I deem to be mistakes, but that's the whole sort of wonky charm of it, I suppose. Yeah, there's records that have lasted the test of time that I had no idea what I was doing, and it was just kind of pick and mix, that have lasted a lot longer and resonate more with people than tracks I've made where I knew which compressor to use, you know. I'm doing some work with Yellow, doing some gigs with them, and I always remember I did a remix for Yellow. I can't remember the name of the Jungle Bill. That's it. I was in a hotel room and I switched on MTV, and it was an interview with Boris Blank and Dieter Meier, and the remix had just come out. I'd just done the remix, and the interviewer said, "So what do you think of Andrew Weatherall's remix?" And Dieter Meier just really dry went, "I think Andrew needs to make his own music." And I think sure that was kind of about the time of sort of Savers of Paradise and stuff. So yeah, it was a bit of a lazy because it was great. I can get accolades and make my own music using other people's bits. Yeah, I mean I can smash the jigsaw puzzle up and make my own picture, and get credit for making the jigsaw puzzle in the first place. That was quite attractive for a time. You know what I mean? It cut down on having to learn an instrument or learn how the studio worked. But then again, that it was still. I didn't mean to say my ideas dried up. You know, being at the forefront of what was going on the dance floor, in the eye of the storm. That, as I said earlier, that was as important as someone that had read the manuals. I think. That was at the time when I thought I had to make a massive statement over possibly 15 minutes. You know, all my favourite records, a lot of my favourite records were over and done with in 2.5 minutes. All the records that had informed me were pretty short. All the great dub records were 3-4 minutes long. But I think I was overcompensating because I knew, I thought like, oh, I'm going to be found out that I'm just an ideas man, you know what I mean? So if I chuck as many ideas at it as I can, you know, make this grand statement, a 15-minute long track, that would somehow deflect people from finding out that, you know what I mean, it's just me behind the curtain with some levers, you know what I mean. I've done my own psychotherapy over the years, and looking back on it, that making that big gesture like that is usually a sign of insecurity, isn't it? It's a showbiz classic, you know what I mean? The flamboyant, you know, I'm with this big statement, and they get off stage and you know, they're totally insecure. All the showbiz greats are insecure, surely, aren't they? And it manifests itself in a sweeping gesture, which thankfully I've managed to reasonably rein in. I think as you know, as I've got to be more confident in the studio and doing my job, I don't feel the need to make, you know what I mean, the grand gesture so much. Because I knew how pop music worked. I could see that coming. I knew it was going to become a popular sound. So you were going to get people. It was going to move somewhere else. And I just always thought it was a bit weird that it was DJs. You know what I mean? It's just like fucking hell. You know, that's God bless him. That's why people are so desperate for heroes. That's why they made Pete Doherty a hero. You know what I mean? What DJs is heroes. So. And as entertaining as it was for a while, I sort of got almost to that precipice of that. I could have gone a certain way, you know what I mean? I was playing main room at Cream and things like that, but I just thought, this isn't the fun's wearing off now. You know what I mean? It's not where I wanna be. This music is going somewhere I don't want it to go, and kind of sort of took a conscious decision to kind of go another route, really. No, I watched it. It was great watching it from afar. It was absolutely ridiculous, and some of the buffoons that took the mantle of superstar DJ upon themselves is fantastic. It's very, very amusing. if you create your own system, you've got to realise that there are limitations when it comes to fame and money. But surely that's not, that's what you've got to make. If you don't want to be particularly famous, or you don't want to make shitloads of money, don't sit and moan about how you're not famous and you haven't got loads of money, which is what a lot of people do in the underground scene of whatever kind of music. They're very vociferous about keeping it real, but then as soon as anyone pokes their head above the parapet and goes shit or bust, they moan about them. And so, well, you don't want to be in that world anyway. Why are you having a go at them? You know what I mean? Why are you having a go at David Guetta? You wouldn't want those twats that turn up at his things coming to your club anyway. You know what I mean? He's a magnificent French twat filter, and it's a different world. It's a cartoon world. It's a different level of show business. So why worry about it? I had to do it. It was born of necessity, because it was all getting a bit cosy. We had our little studio, and we were in our kind of sort of underground ghetto, and we were very vociferous about other people. He's a twat, and that's rubbish. Sell out. And I just thought, well, hold on a minute. That's a bit unfair, isn't it? We weren't going online. It's just, even now I don't go online at all. So it was just within our little sort of cabal, if you will. And I was going through certain massive emotional problems as well, and I just needed to. I don't know. It's a kind of. I'm not as brave as Kevin Rowlands. I couldn't walk out on stage at Reading in a Teddy nightie and lingerie, but I had to do an equivalent of that, which meant putting myself up for ridicule and criticism by writing songs and singing, and it helped me. It was not therapy, because I don't know. I don't know when you start talking about art as therapy, it kind of does maybe demean the art a little bit. But yeah, it was just something I had to do. I had to make. I wanted to feel a little bit uncomfortable, and boy did that work. I've just done put together an exhibition of my artwork, and it's called Evidence the Enemy, because evidence is the enemy of myth and legend and fable. Because now you can go, imagine that, let's say the Sex Pistols at the Free Trade Hall. You know what I mean? Myth, legendary. It was probably rubbish. You know what I mean? And there was like 10 people there. If there'd have been camera phones, that myth would have never, because you could have gone like, oh yeah, that was fucking rubbish. You know what I mean? You could have watched it and gone like, he said he was there, he wasn't there. That's bollocks. That story's rubbish. And the whole thing, the myth begins to crumble. The more evidence you have. But then again, at the same time, I love going on YouTube and watching footage of old gigs and stuff like that. But then again, they're shaky handheld camera that have been lost for ages, and with 40 years of history gone by. So yeah, evidence is the enemy of myth, legend, and lie and fable. And it's just part of that. There's far too much daylight on magic. It's why I don't actually read a lot of books about music or about bands, especially ones I like. I don't want to know. I still want them to be these mythical creatures. I don't want to know how that sound was. A massive part of me wants to know how that snare sound was achieved, but a bigger part of me, I don't want to know how the lady's sawn in half. I could go on the internet and find out in 2 minutes, but I don't want to know how the lady's sawn in half. I know it's all smoke and mirrors, but I like smoke and mirrors. I don't do many gigs like that, but sometimes at festivals, it's basically people just kind of take. It's like cultural. I Spy. Yeah, I've done that. Picture of themselves like that. They'll wait. They'll just sort of just stand looking like that. Then if there's a breakdown in the song, they'll all go like that. The hands will come down. They'll go like that. Then they'll take another picture. But thankfully, my milieu is still in some scuzzy warehouse somewhere with 500 people that aren't that bothered about taking pictures of themselves. And it's interesting to watch. It's an interesting phenomena, but it's not. It's like with a lot of cultural things now. It's the cultural thing itself is almost. It's merely a thing going on in the background of your interesting life that you're going to tell everybody about. Yeah, I've done that. I don't know why I've done it. I don't know why I've worn these clothes. I don't know why I'm standing going like this in front of this person, but I've done it. I've always loved pop culture, but because I love it and hate it in equal measure. It's beautiful and annoying in equal measure. I think I'm glad we've got that kind of that guy. There's a pop culture going on, and it's just where the hell's, you know, it's accelerating. It's gone past eating itself. You know what I mean? It's now regurgitating and taking a crap at the same time. Especially if you're involved in music and all the periphery entertainment that's available, shall we say, in the pharmaceutical area. You know, that nearly put paid to my job 10, 15 years ago, and I really had to pull out every stop and every ounce of my work ethic, because I realised that the satisfaction I got of having done a good job and made a good piece of art outweighed any drug. I've taken quite a lot of drugs in my time across many areas and had a very lovely time. Thank you very much. I'm not going to start on that. Don't do it. But that's the decision I made. That's what I weighed up, was that the work ethic and the satisfaction of having worked. The feeling of that, to me, was better than any drug I'd taken. So that was very helpful. So the work ethic there was very helpful in probably saving my life, I would go as far to say. I still get a great thrill the first time I hear a record. Again, that feeling of music is greater than any drug, and I'm still getting a feeling. It's slightly second hand. I'll never hear that record for the first time again, but I can look into the faces of people that are hearing it for the first time, and it's not a nostalgia thing. I don't look at them and go, oh, I'd love to do an E. You know what I mean? That's fantastic. I don't need to. Hopefully I'm more developed as a human being, and I can sort of conjure up those feelings without relying on pharmaceuticals. I mean, I still smoke, and that's my sort of sacrament, I suppose. That's my Gnostic ritual, is some extremely good hashish and some good music. So that's my thing, DJing now. I just get royally stoned, and it helps rhythmically. It's the best drug rhythmically. You know, your whole rhythmic sensibility changes. DJing on cocaine is nonsense. So I've managed to. Again, that's back to the work ethic. It's how can I do my job properly? Yes, there is a self-medication involved, but it's a self-medication that actually helps. It helps my job, and I'm not half so much of a dick on high quality hashish as I am, or I was when I took cocaine. a common tale that many musicians will tell you. That, you know, it rarely brings the best out in people, that drug. So it's a personality thing and a job thing, the decision to kind of leave that behind a little bit. Again, it's just accidentally got into DJing. It was just something I thought I'd do for a year. And I never thought, because it was such a small scene, it wasn't even called Acid House. There's probably 200 or 300 kids in the scene. I never thought I was particularly part of English social history or anything. You know, when I'm, 4 E's into a bender, listening to Corlegia by the Residents in the fitness centre in at Shum, you're so in the moment. You're not thinking about, oh, I'm part of history or anything. It's only 20 years later and you're still doing it. I think that's why I'm still doing it, because I've always, from day one, I thought this is going to finish tomorrow. I might as well have as much fun and do what I want to do as opposed to what other people think I should do. So to this day, I still think, someone's going to phone me up and go, right, that's your lot. You've had fun. Move along. So. Can I call you back in about half an hour? Alright, cheers mate, alright.